8 young girls saves a dying massive wolf. Years later, shocking events shake the whole village on a freezing winter night where snow blankets the pine forests and the wind howls through the mountains. A young girl stumbles upon a large she-wolf on the brink of death and bravely saves her. Little did anyone know this daring act would unleash a mythical secret, shaking an entire community and leaving a timeless legacy. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. January in Montana was a brutal affair, where the Rocky Mountains stood cloaked in snow and the wind howled through towering pines like a restless spirit. The air carried the sharp scent of pine resin, and a faint mist hung low, softening the edges of the world until it felt like a dream. Isolated, silent, and hauntingly beautiful. In the small town of Elk Creek, nestled at the foot of these mountains, life revolved around the rhythms of farming and ranching. Wooden cabins dotted the landscape, their chimneys puffing smoke into the frigid sky, a testament to the warmth within. But beneath the quiet, a tension simmered. Gray wolves had been prowling closer, snatching cattle and sheep, and the townsfolk whispered of a massive beast leading the pack. Hunters patrolled the forests, their rifles gleaming with purpose, fueled by fear and the promise of reward. Elk Creek, named for the majestic creatures that once roamed its valleys, was a place where the wild and the tame stood in uneasy balance, and the name itself evoked the rugged spirit of the American West. John Parker, a weathered man of 45, trudged through the snow, his boots crunching against the frozen ground. Once a ranger at the moonlit preserve, he'd been sacked years ago for clashing with poachers, leaving him to scrape by as a hunter and farmer. His frame was solid, his eyes sharp beneath a graying beard, but the weight of hard years showed in the lines etched across his face. Beside him walked his daughter Emily, a 15-year-old with a ponytail of chestnut hair and a gaze that drank in the world with quiet curiosity. She loved the wilderness, her sharp eyes catching tracks and signs her father taught her to read, though she hated the killing that often followed. Her dream was to become a zoologist, to study creatures like the wolves her town despised. Today, John had brought her along to hunt deer, a lesson in survival. She carried a small backpack with water and bread, her breath visible in the cold as they moved deeper into the forest. Near a frozen stream where ice glittered like shattered glass, they stopped dead. There, sprawled across the snow, lay a massive she-wolf, her body still as stone. Blood stained the white ground around her, a stark crimson trail marking her final struggle. Her silver-gray fur shimmered faintly, catching the dim light, and her size was staggering, nearly 7 feet from nose to tail, far larger than any wolf John had seen. Her golden eyes were half closed, glinting with a flicker of light. Though her chest seemed still, a bullet wound marred her flank, the fur matted with dried blood, suggesting a hunter's shot that hadn't quite finished her. "She's a rare one," John muttered, kneeling beside her. "Could be the pack leader." He pressed a gloved hand near her muzzle, feeling for breath, and shook his head. "Gone. We'll take her back. Her pelt's worth a month's supplies in this damn winter." Emily stood frozen, her heart pounding. The wolf was magnificent, a creature of power and grace, and the thought of skinning it twisted her stomach. She edged closer, her eyes tracing the wound. It wasn't deep, slicing along the ribs rather than piercing vital organs. Her fingers brushed the fur, still warm despite the cold, and a shiver ran through her. Could it still be alive? She wanted to speak, to beg her father to check again, but his grim resolve silenced her. Memories of her grandfather Bill, a retired ranger, flooded her mind. His tales of wolves as symbols of resilience in Lakota lore, creatures that never surrendered easily. Emily's pulse quickened, a mix of fear and compassion stirring within her. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wolf was more than just a trophy. As John began dragging the body toward their sled, she made a silent vow. She'd return tonight to see for herself, to uncover the truth hidden in those golden eyes. The journey back to Elk Creek was a quiet one, the sled gliding through the pine forest as the sun dipped below the Rockies, painting the sky in fiery hues of red and gold. John secured the she-wolf's body to the sled, with coarse rope, draping a tarp over it to shield it from the falling snow. John focused on the path, his mind on the practical: food, firewood, survival, in a winter that showed no mercy. "Wolf pelts fetch a good price," he said, glancing at Emily. "We'll sell it, buy what we need. It's how we get by out here." Emily walked beside the sled, her eyes fixed on the tarp, the shape of the she-wolf beneath it, looming in her mind. She couldn't shake the warmth she'd felt when touching the fur, the faint hope that life still clung to the creature. Every jolt of the sled made her wince, fearing the tarp would slip and expose the wolf before she could act. Her thoughts drifted to Grandpa Bill, his voice echoing in her memory. Wolves are sacred to the Lakota M. They're tough as hell, don't go down without a fight. She clung to those words, convincing herself the wolf might still breathe. But doubt gnawed at her. Could she defy her father, risk his disapproval? The idea of sneaking out felt reckless, yet the wolf's fate seemed to rest in her hands, a weight she couldn't ignore. As they reached the edge of Elk Creek, the Parker home came into view. A sturdy log cabin perched near the forest, its fence half buried in snow, and its stable stacked with firewood. A soft glow spilled from the windows, the oil lamps inside casting warmth against the gathering dust. It stood apart from the town, a symbol of the Parkers' quiet isolation, a trait that had only deepened since John's days as a ranger. He hauled the she-wolf into the shed behind the house, a dim space of weathered wood and packed earth, and laid her on the floor. "We'll skin her tomorrow," he said, locking the door with a rusty padlock. Oblivious to the storm brewing in his daughter's mind, Emily lingered outside, her breath clouding in the cold, her gaze fixed on the shed. The wolf was no ordinary beast. She felt it in her bone. As the stars began to pierce the night sky, she resolved to return when the house was asleep, to discover if the creature her father had dismissed as dead still held a spark of life, and what that might mean for them all. As the icy cloak of night fell over Elk Creek, the world outside the Parker cabin grew still, save for the distant howl of wind through the Rockies. Inside, John and his brother Tom, a grizzled Vietnam vet who shared their home, had succumbed to sleep, their snores a soft rhythm against the creaking walls. Emily, her heart pounding like a drum, lay wide awake in her room. The image of the she-wolf, its silver fur worn beneath her touch, haunted her. She couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't dead, that its golden eyes held a plea she alone had seen. Slipping from her bed, she grabbed a flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness as she tiptoed out, her boots silent on the wooden floor. The shed loomed ahead, a shadowed sentinel under the starlit sky. Each step felt like a rebellion against her father's verdict. But the wolf's fate pulled her forward, a weight heavier than fear. The shed door groaned as Emily eased it open, the hinges squeaking in protest. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of dry wood and damp earth, and a single bulb dangled from the ceiling, casting a feeble glow over the rough-hewn walls. Dust motes danced in the light, and the space felt both secret and alive, as if it held its own breath. Emily's flashlight swept across the floor, landing on the tarp-covered form of the she-wolf. Her hands trembled as she pulled back the cloth, the beam illuminating the creature's massive frame. It lay motionless, its silver-gray fur matted with blood, but then a faint rise of its chest, a whisper of breath so delicate it seemed a thread stretched breaking. Emily gasped, her knees buckling as she sank beside the wolf. It was alive. The wolf stirred, its golden eyes fluttering open, glinting like embers in the menace, as if pleading for salvation. A shiver ran down her spine, not from cold but from a strange connection, a silent understanding that pulsed between them. "Don't be afraid," she whispered, her voice barely audible, aware of how absurd it was to speak to a wild beast. Yet she felt the wolf understood, its gaze steady, almost knowing. Leaning closer, Emily aimed her flashlight at the wound, a 10-inch gash along the flank, crusted with dried blood but still oozing. The bullet had grazed rather than pierced, missing bones and vital organs. Hope surged within her. With care, this wolf could survive. Emily's mind raced. Keeping this secret could bring trouble. Elk Creek's hatred for wolves ran deep, fueled by lost livestock and Robert Hayes' $200 bounty for each pelt. If caught, her family might face the town's wrath, branded as traitors for harboring a predator. But abandoning the wolf was unthinkable. It wasn't just pity. Something about this creature felt extraordinary, as if its survival mattered beyond reason. She darted back to the house, grabbing an old quilt from a closet, and draped it over the wolf to shield it from the Montana chill. "I'll be back at dawn," she murmured, her eyes fierce with resolve. "I'll bring food, medicine, whatever you need." Fear mingled with determination, her heart thumping with the weight of responsibility. This wolf wasn't just a beast. It was a life she'd chosen to protect, a spark of something greater she couldn't yet name. The town's hostility loomed in her thoughts. Whispers of wolf attacks filled Elk Creek's streets, and hunters roamed the forests, spurred by Hayes' reward. If they suspected the Parkers were hiding a wolf, they'd tear the shed apart. But as Emily slipped back to her room, the wolf's eyes burned in her memory, a cause she couldn't ignore. She was risking everything. But the pull of those golden eyes and her grandfather's tales of resilient wolves told her this was a fight worth waging. Dawn broke with a pale light seeping through the cracks of the shed, casting faint stripes across the wooden floor. Before the house stirred, Emily crept out again, her arms laden with a bottle of water, a slab of beef from the fridge, and a bottle of antiseptic from the family's first aid kit. The cold bit at her fingers as she unlocked the shed, her breath clouding in the morning chill. Hope flickered within her as she knelt beside the quilt she'd left. The wolf's eyes opened, brighter than the night before, and it shifted slightly, licking water from Emily's outstretched hand. "You're stronger than you look," she said softly, a smile breaking through her nerve. She cleaned the wound with warm water, dabbing antiseptic on the gash, wincing as the wolf flinched but didn't snap. The sight of its strength returning filled her with a quiet joy, a sense that she was part of something miraculous. Emily named the wolf Star, inspired by the way its silver-gray fur gleamed like a constellation under the shed's dim bulb. "Star, you're gonna make it," she whispered, the name feeling like a promise, a bond forged in secrecy. She swept the shed's corner, clearing dust and debris, and layered straw and blankets to make a soft bed for Star. Medicine and water bottles were tucked beneath a loose floorboard, hidden from prying eyes, especially her Uncle Tom's, who had a knack for noticing oddities. The shed transformed into a makeshift sanctuary, a hospital born of a 15-year-old's determination. Hours slipped away as Emily sat beside Star, her voice a gentle stream of dreams and stories. She spoke of becoming a zoologist, of exploring the Rockies, and of her grandfather Bill's tales where wolves were Lakota symbols of loyalty and wisdom. Star's eyes seemed to listen, responding with a calm that felt almost human, deepening Emily's conviction that this wolf was no ordinary creature. But danger lurked beyond the shed's wall. Elk Creek buzzed with fear after another cow vanished, and Robert Hayes, the town chairman, rallied hunters to scour the forests. Emily overheard a friend's mother at the general store talking of meetings at the town hall to plan wolf hunt. Rumors of a large pack near the moonlit preserve stoked the town's paranoia, and Emily knew that if Star were discovered, the consequences would be dire, not just for the wolf, but for her family. Branded as betrayers, their home possibly searched by an angry mob. She locked the shed carefully, slipping out only at dawn or dusk, her movements shrouded in secrecy. The weight of her choice pressed harder, each creak of the floorboards a reminder of the risk she was taking. Emily's resolve was rooted in more than pity. She recalled Bill's stories of the mother wolf, a sacred Lakota figure who guided the lost and guarded the respectful. Star's eyes, deep and knowing, seemed to carry that ancient spirit, telling a story older than the mountain. In the shed's quiet, Emily began a journal, sketching Star's form under the lamplight, her pencil tracing the curve of its ears, the glint of its fur. "You're not just a wolf," she wrote, her words a vow. "You're something more, and I'll keep you safe." The bond grew, a thread of trust weaving between them, setting the stage for a journey that would defy the town's fears and awaken a legend. But as Emily left the shed, the distant howl of a wolf echoed through the pines, a reminder that her secret was a fragile thing, balanced on the edge of discovery. The first rays of dawn crept through the frosted windows of the Parker cabin, painting the kitchen in a soft golden glow. Emily stood by the stove, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her sweater, her heart racing as she waited for her father. John shuffled in, his boots heavy on the wooden floor, a steaming mug of coffee in hand. Before he could sit, Emily's voice broke the quiet, trembling but resolute. "Dad, the wolf in the shed. It's alive." She blurted, her eyes wide with hope and fear. "I checked last night, she's breathing barely, but she's fighting. Please, we have to help her." She recounted the faint rise of the wolf's chest, the golden eyes that seemed to plead for life, her words tumbling out in a rush. John froze, the mug halfway to his lips, his brow furrowing as shock washed over him. He set the coffee down with a clunk, his mind reeling. "Alive," he repeated, voice low, edged with worry. The image of Elk Creek's wrath flashed before him. Robert Hayes's $200, 0 cents bounty for wolf pelts, the townsfolk's fear of predators, the mob that could storm their home if they learned a wolf was hidden in their shed. His daughter's safety, their fragile standing in the town, hung in the balance. Yet as he met Emily's gaze, he saw a fire there, a determination that echoed her late mother's love for the wild. Her courage, a 15-year-old girl defying the odds to save a beast most would kill, stirred something deep within him. He remembered his father, Bill Parker, a retired ranger whose voice still echoed in his mind. Wolves are sacred to the Lakota, John. They are tough, and nature deserves our respect. That same respect had driven John to protect the forests as a ranger. Before poachers and politics tore it away, silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of choice. John rubbed his beard, wrestling with fear and memory. The town could turn on them, branding them traitors. But Emily's plea, her unyielding compassion, tugged at the part of him that still believed in the wild. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders easing. "All right, Em," he said, voice gruff but soft. "We'll help her, but this stays between us. Not a word, not even to Tom. One slip and we're done." Emily nodded, her eyes shining with relief, a smile breaking through her nerves. They moved to the shed where John knelt beside the she-wolf, now named Star by Emily. His ranger's hands, steady despite years away from the job, probed the wound. A shallow gash, the bullet grazing the flank without hitting bone or organs. "She's got a chance," he said, glancing at Emily. "You did right, kid. She's a fighter." They huddled in the dim shed, plodding in whispers. John would ride to town, buy antiseptic and bandages under the guise of needing them for the horse. Emily would keep tending Star, slipping out at dawn and dusk to avoid Tom's curious eyes, hiding every trace of their secret. As they worked, a quiet bond grew. John's pride in his daughter's heart, Emily's gratitude for her father's trust. They left the shed, the locked door a fragile barrier against Elk Creek's suspicions, united in their risky mission to save Star, unaware of the legend they were beginning to weave. Over the next 3 weeks, the shed behind the Parker cabin became a sanctuary of quiet miracles. Star, the she-wolf Emily had named for her shimmering silver-gray fur, grew stronger under their clandestine care. At first, her movements were tentative, a wince accompanying each step as the bullet wound on her flank slowly healed. But with Emily's daily tending, fresh water, slabs of beef pilfered from the fridge, and careful cleaning of the gash, Star began to stand tall, her massive frame filling the shed with a presence both wild and serene. The wound, once raw and oozing, closed into a faint scar, hidden beneath a coat that gleamed like moonlight under the shed's dim bulb. Emily's heart swelled each time she saw Star take a steady step, her golden eyes sharp yet gentle, locking onto the girl with a trust that felt almost sacred. "You're a fighter, aren't you?" Emily whispered, stroking the wolf's fur, marveling at its softness. Star would lie still, letting Emily's hands glide over her, a rare submission for a creature born to roam free. John, too, was struck by Star's resilience. His ranger's eye saw something extraordinary in her, perhaps the leader of a pack before a hunter's bullet brought her down. "She's not like the others," he said. One evening, watching Star lap water from a tin bowl, her eyes held a quiet wisdom, a depth that made the shed feel less like a prison and more like a haven. For Emily, Star was no mere wolf. She was a living testament to the stories her grandfather Bill had told, tales of Lakota spirits, where wolves were guardians of the wild. Each day as she slipped out at dawn to tend to Star, Emily felt a growing certainty that this wolf was meant to cross her path, a spark of destiny in the cold Montana winter. By mid-March, a new discovery shifted their world. Emily noticed Star's belly swelling, not from the meat they fed her, but from something else. Her heart raced as she called John to the shed, pointing to the wolf's rounded sides. "Dad, I think she's pregnant," she said, her voice a mix of awe and worry. John knelt beside Star, his hands gentle as he examined her, his ears as a ranger guiding his touch. "You're right," he confirmed, his tone serious. "She's due in a few weeks. Wolves like her, carrying pups, they're fierce. Will tear apart anything to protect their young. But look at her, Em. She trusts us. Star lay calm, her golden eyes steady on Emily, undisturbed by their presence. John shook his head in wonder, noting that such trust was unheard of in a wild wolf. He instructed Emily to prepare a cleaner corner of the shed, piling fresh straw and blankets to make a safe nest for the birth, a task that filled her with both excitement and dread. Saving Star was one thing. Now they were guardians of unborn lives, a responsibility that deepened their secret. April arrived with a cold rain that drummed against the shed's roof. At one stormy night, Star's labor began. Emily stayed by her side, forsaking sleep, her flashlight casting shadows as she spread extra straw to keep the wolf warm. Star whimpered softly, her body tensing with each contraction, and Emily, heart pounding, whispered encouragements. "You can do this, Star. I'm here." Over hours, Star gave birth to 4 pups, 3 with gray fur like their mother, and 1 pure white, a tiny ghost in the dim light. Emily, tears streaming down her face, gently wiped each pup clean with a cloth, placing them beside Star's flank. The mother wolf licked her young, her eyes weary but radiant with maternal love. John stood at the shed's door, keeping his distance to avoid stressing Star, but his gaze softened with respect for his daughter's devotion. "You're something else, Em," he said quietly, fetching more water before leaving them in the flickering lamplight. Emily named the pups based on their traits. Mist, for the gray one with fur soft as fog. Stone, for the sturdy one with a coat like mountain rock. Dawn, for the one whose fur caught the light like morning. And Ghost, for the white pup, ethereal and bright rock. She scrawled their names in her journal, sketching their tiny forms curled against Star, feeling they were part of her now, a family born in secret. The pup's arrival marked a turning point, elevating Emily's mission from saving one life to protecting an entire pack. She knew the stakes were higher. Hitting one wolf was risky, but a litter's cries could betray them to Elk Creek's hunters. Yet, as she watched Star nuzzle her young, Emily's resolve hardened. She believed Star was the mother wolf of Lakota lore, a guardian spirit, and these pups were proof of a miracle she'd vowed to preserve. As spring unfolded, the shed became Emily's world, a refuge where she spent every spare moment with Star and her pup. Now a month-old, Mist, Stone, Dawn, and Ghost were bundles of energy, their clumsy paws stumbling over the straw as Emily rolled a ball of twine for them to chase. Their squeaks and yips filled the air, a joyful cacophony under the shed's dim bulb. Where scattered straw, Emily laughed as Ghost, the white pup, pounced on the ball, his golden eyes gleaming with mischief. "You're too smart for your own good," she teased, tossing it again. Ghost was the brightest, often dragging a stick to her like a dog, while Mist hung back, shy and misty-furred. Stone, broad and stolid, bullied his siblings for milk, and Dawn, with her radiant coat, darted circles around Emily. Pale wagging, she recorded their quirks in her journal, dreaming of a future studying wolves, their individuality fueling her passion. Star watched these games with a calm that astonished Emily. A she-wolf lay still, letting Emily scoop up the pups, her golden eyes serene as if entrusting her young to the girl. When Emily cradled Ghost, Star's gaze was steady, a bond of trust so profound it felt like friendship. "You're like a sister, you know," Emily whispered one evening, sitting beside Star, her voice carrying dreams of Yellowstone, of protecting wolves from hunters. She spoke of her grandfather Bill, his Lakota stories painting wolves as free spirits, and Star's attentive eyes made the impossible seem true, that this wolf understood her heart. These moments filled her journal, pages brimming with sketches of Star's regal form and Ghost's playful antics, a testament to a connection that grew deeper each day. But John grew uneasy. He saw Emily's devotion, the hours she spent in the shed, and it worried him. One morning, as they checked Star's healing scar, he spoke plainly. "Em, you're getting too attached," he said, his voice firm but kind. "These wolves belong in the wild, not here. Keeping them longer's asking for trouble." He feared Elk Creek's hunters, led by Robert Hayes, would catch wind of their secret, endangering not just the wolves but their family. John shared Bill's words. "Wolves are Lakota totems, symbols of freedom. They can't be tamed, and come summer when the pups are strong, we'll have to let them go." He spoke of the mother wolf, a protector in Lakota tales, suggesting Star might be such a spirit, meant to roam free. His words struck Emily, stirring a conflict within her. She knew John was right. Wolves weren't pets, and the shed was a cage, however loved. But her heart rebelled at the thought of losing Star, Mist, Stone, Dawn, and Ghost. They were her family, their warmth and trust a refuge from the town's cold stare. In her journal, she poured out her fears, sketching Star beside her pups, Ghost with a stick, and a dream of them running free in the Rockies. "I know they need the forest," she wrote, "but how do I let go?" The pages became her solace, a way to brace for the inevitable. Yet her resolve to keep them safe burned brighter, even as danger loomed. Elk Creek's tensions simmered higher. Hunters patrolled the forests, spurred by Hayes's bounty and rumors of a large pack near the moonlit preserve. George Miller, the Parkers' neighbor with a penchant for moonshine, grew suspicious, noting Emily's frequent shed visits. At the local tavern, he spun tales of strange noises at night, his words reaching Hayes. The town's fear of wolves, stoked by lost livestock, made every rustle a threat, and Emily felt the walls closing in, her secret teetering on the edge of exposure. By late spring, the pups were nearly 3 months old, their playful yips turning to tentative howls that pierced the Montana night. The sound, sharp and haunting, echoed from the shed, carrying into the forest beyond the Parker cabin. Emily woke with a start one night, her heart racing as the howls rang out, a chorus both beautiful and dangerous. She bolted to the shed, her flashlight cutting through the dark, and found Mist, Stone, Dawn, and Ghost, standing on wobbly legs, heads tilted back in song. "Shay, please," she whispered, stroking their fur, but the howls persisted, slipping through the shed's crack. John joined her, his face grim as he checked the locked door. "They're loud enough to hear from Miller's place," he said, voice low. "We're running out of time, Anne." Emily's stomach churned. George Miller, always sipping moonshine on his porch, had taken to watching their cabin, his eyes narrowing at her comings and goings. She'd seen him linger near the shed's fence, muttering about the moonlit preserve's wolves. His stories reached the tavern, where he spoke of wolf cries and odd behavior. Words that spread like wildfire to Robert Hayes, the town chairman, ever vigilant against the wolf threat, began asking hunters about the Parkers, his suspicion a growing storm. Emily imagined the shed door splintering under angry fists, Star and the pups facing rifles, and sleep became a stranger. The Parkers doubled their caution. John swept away stray fur around the shed, dousing the ground with water to mask scents, and forbade talk of wolves near Tom, whose curiosity could unravel everything. "Only go in when it's dark," he told Emily, his voice tense. "And be quick." Emily nodded, her hands shaking as she hid bowls and blankets, each night a test of stealth. The howls, though beautiful, were a ticking clock each night. Yet Emily's resolve held firm. Standing in the shed, watching Star sleep beside Ghost's white fur, she made a silent vow. "I won't let them hurt you," she said, her voice fierce despite the fear. She knew John's warning about releasing them was wise, that the forest was their true home. But the thought of losing them tore at her, a pain she poured into her journal. "Letting go might save them, but it'll break me." The pups' howls, Star's trust, and the town's growing suspicion wove a tightening net, and Emily braced for the storm she knew was coming, her heart set on protecting the family she'd sworn to save. The first light of May crept over Elk Creek, but a thick fog clung to the town, draping the wooden cabins and pine forests in a ghostly veil. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, and the quiet was shattered by the crunch of boots on the frosted path, leading to the Parker cabin. Robert Hayes, the town chairman, strode at the head of a small mob, his face set like stone. At 50, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that cut like a blade, he carried the weight of Elk Creek's fear. Once a farmer, he'd risen to lead the community, driven by a fierce need to protect its livestock from the gray wolves that haunted the Rockies. Recent losses, cows vanishing, sheep torn apart, had stoked the town's paranoia, and George Miller's drunken tales of wolf howls from the Parker shed had lit a fuse. Robert pounded on the cabin door, his voice booming through the mist. "John Parker, open up. We know you're hiding something in that shed. Folks say you've got wolves in there endangering our herds. Show us, now." Behind him, a dozen townfolk, farmers, hunters, neighbors, muttered agreement, their faces a mix of anger and suspicion. rifles glinting in their hand. Inside, John's heart sank, but his face remained a mask of calm. He'd seen this coming. The night before, as the pup's howls grew louder and George's gossip spread, he'd made a choice. At dawn, while Emily slept, he'd slipped into the shed, his breath clouding in the cold. Star had looked at him, her golden eyes steady, as if she knew. With mist, stone, dawn, and ghost trailing behind, John led them through a hidden trail to the edge of the moonlit preserve, where the forest swallowed their tracks in melting snow. The pups, nearly 3 months old, stumbled but followed their mother, Star's massive form guiding them into the wild. John watched them vanish into the pines, a pang in his chest, but a certainty that this was their only chance. Now facing Robert's demands, he opened the door, his voice even. "You're welcome to look, Hayes, but you're wasting your time." Emily stood behind her father, her hands clenched so tightly, her nails bit into her palms. The sight of the crowd, men she'd known all her life, now glaring like she was a stranger, made her stomach churn. Robert's accusations stung, but worse was the ache in her heart. She hadn't said goodbye. Star's golden eyes, Ghost's playful yips, the warmth of mist, stone, and dawn curled against her. They were gone, taken by her father's quiet decision. She wanted to scream, to run to the shed and find them still there. But she forced herself to stay still, lips pressed tight to hide the tears threatening to spill. Her mind replayed every moment. Star's trust, the pups' clumsy games, the nights she'd whispered her dreams to them. They were her family, and now they were lost to the forest. A wound deeper than she could name, John led the group to the shed, his steps deliberate, betraying none of the turmoil within. The door creaked open, revealing a space, bare but for a few stray wolf hairs, and an old tin bowl, its edges crusted with dried meat. The air smelled of straw and wood, masking any trace of Star's scent, thanks to John's meticulous efforts to erase evidence. "See for yourself," he said. "We store meat here sometimes. Maybe a coyote got in, left some fur. No wolf." Robert stormed inside, his boots thumping on the floorboards, his eyes scanning every corner. The others followed, poking at the straw, overturning crates, but found nothing. No wolves, no pups, no proof of the Parker secret. Robert's jaw tightened, his frustration palpable. He kicked a pile of straw, sending dust swirling, and turned to John with a glare. "You're lucky there's nothing here, Parker. But we're watching you." One hint of wolf and yellow. His words hung like a threat, sharp and unyielding. Emily lingered by the cabin's window, her gaze fixed on the forest beyond, where mist wove through the pines like a shroud. She barely heard Robert's threats, her mind adrift in the wild. Star was out there, leading mist, stone, dawn, and ghost. Through the moonlit preserve, her silver fur a beacon in the dawn. Emily's heart whispered a prayer. Stay safe, stay hidden. She trusted Star's cunning, her strength as a mother, to keep the pups from hunters' rifles. Ghost's bright eyes, mist's shy steps, stone's sturdy frame. Dawn's the crowd dispersed, their boots crunching away, their murmurs fading into the fog. Robert cast one last suspicious glance, his eyes lingering on Emily, as if sensing her secret. The air around the cabin grew heavy, charged with the weight of distrust. John closed the shed door, his hand resting on Emily's shoulder, a silent reassurance. "We did what we had to," he said softly, his voice steady but tinged with regret. Emily nodded, her throat tight, unable to speak. They'd protected Star and the pups, but at a cost. The town's eyes would follow them now, every move scrutinized, their isolation deeper than ever. As the fog swallowed the last of the mob, Emily looked to the forest, her heart tethered to the wolves now running free, their howls a distant echo. But the legend they'd begun was only starting to unfold. The fog that shrouded Elk Creek the morning of the confrontation lingered in more ways than one, settling over the Parker cabin like a cold, unyielding shadow. The town turned its back on them, their name now a whisper less with scorn. The Wolf House. Neighbors who once nodded in passing now averted their eyes, their steps quickening as they skirted the cabin's snow-dusted fence. John, once welcomed at hunting gatherings where men swapped tales over whiskey, found himself excluded, his absence noted with knowing glance. Emily felt the sting most acutely at school, where classmates' whispers followed her like a chill wind. "She's from the Wolf House," they'd murmur. their words sharp as thorns, turning her into an outsider in the town she'd known all her life. The cabin perched on the edge of Elk Creek became a fortress of solitude, its wooden walls a barrier against the town's judgment. Emily retreated within, her world shrinking to the familiar creak of the floorboards and the flicker of oil lamps, her heart heavy with the loss of Star and the pup. Every misfortune in Elk Creek, a cow gone astray, a clutch of chickens vanished, was laid at the Parkers' door. It's those wolves they kept, folks grumbled at the town hall, where Robert Hayes fanned the flames with righteous fervor. He stood before the crowd, his voice booming about the menace of gray wolves, pinning each loss on the wolf house without a shred of evidence. No paw prints, no torn fences, just suspicion fueled by fear. The Parkers themselves lost a few hutch, their coop raided in the night. But John kept silent, knowing any complaint would twist back to them. The accusations were a weight, pressing on Emily as she walked the town's muddy street. Her head low to avoid the glares, she wondered how a single act of compassion, saving Star, could cast such a long dark shadow over their lives. Yet amidst the town's hostility, a strange pattern emerged. While nearby towns reported wolf attacks, cattle mauled, sheep scattered, Elk Creek remained untouched. Emily overheard a classmate's father at the general store, grumbling about a neighbor's losses, but noting their own fields were spared. The absence of attack struck her as more than luck. It felt deliberate, a mystery that tugged at her heart. In her room, she confided in her journal, her pencil tracing the curves of Star's name. "They're out there, aren't they?" she wrote. "Star, mist, stone, dawn, goat. They're keeping their distance, protecting us." She believed Star, with her golden eyes and quiet wisdom, was honoring a silent pact, leading her pups to avoid Elk Creek as thanks for the care they'd received. The idea took root, fed by memories of her grandfather Bill's Lakota tales, where the mother wolf guarded those who showed respect. Emily clung to this belief, whispering to the pages that Star was more than a wolf. She was a spirit, a guide, her presence woven into the forest's heart. Grief and hope warred within Emily. She spent hours by her window staring at the pines where Star and the pups had vanished, their absence a wound that ached with every breath. She missed the warmth of Ghost's white fur, the shy nudge of mist, the sturdy push of stone, the darting energy of dawn, and above all, Star's steady gaze. Yet knowing they were safe in the moonlit preserve, far from hunters' rifles, brought a fragile comfort. "You're free," she murmured, imagining them racing through the forest, Ghost's bright eyes leading the way. Her journal grew thick with sketches, Star under moonlight, Ghost bounding through snow, each stroke a tether to the family she'd lost. She dreamed of meeting Ghost again, certain he'd remember her, his playful spirit unchanged. Those pages became her sanctuary, a place to pour her sorrow and nurture her resolve. "I'll study wolves," she wrote, "to keep them safe, like I kept you." The experience had ignited a fire, a vow to become a zoologist, to protect the creatures Elk Creek feared. John saw the weight his daughter carried, her quiet moments by the window betraying her pain. One evening as they sat by the fire, he spoke gently. "You're hurting, Em, I know," he said, his voice rough but warm. "But what you did for Star, it mattered. My dad Bill used to say the mother wolf protects those who save her kind. I think Star's out there keeping that promise." His words brought a small smile to Emily's lips, a flicker of light in her grip. She leaned into the story, imagining Star as the Lakota spirit Bill described, her pups a legacy of their courage. John, sensing her passion, brought home a book on gray wolves from the town library, its pages worn but brimming with knowledge. "Learn everything you can," he told her. "That's how you'll protect them. Make sense of all this." Emily clutched the book, her eyes bright with purpose. Bond's encouragement, his belief in her, was a lifeline, urging her to channel her love for Star into a future where she could fight for wolves, not just in Elk Creek but across the wilds of Montana. As spring turned to summer, the town's scorn remained, but Emily held fast to her dreams, her journal a map of a journey just beginning, guided by the silent promise of a wolf named Star. Summer arrived in Elk Creek like a long-headed sigh, the snows of winter melting into streams that sparkled through the verdant forests of the Rocky Mountains. The pines stood tall, their needles a vibrant green, and the air hummed with the warmth of life reborn. But for Emily Parker, the season brought us stirred by whispers that rippled through the town's schoolyard. Her classmates, their voices low with intrigue, spoke of a large wolf pack roaming the moonlit preserve, a few miles from Elk Creek. Among them, they said, was a white wolf, massive and cunning, leading with an intelligence that unnerved the hunters who glimpsed it. Emily's heart leaped at the words, her thoughts cradled in the shed, his golden eyes bright with mischief. Could it be him, grown strong and wild? The possibility set her pulse racing, a flicker of light in the shadow of the town's scorn. The rumors passed from tavern to school were a lifeline, pulling her back to the wolves she'd lost when John set them free to escape the mob. Led by Robert Hayes, the moonlit preserve was a sanctuary of untamed beauty, a sprawling expanse of pine forests, rolling hills, and hidden valleys in Montana's heart. Mist often cloaked its trails, weaving through trickling streams and rocky caves where gray wolves made their den. Protected from poachers by law, it was a haven for wildlife. Though hunters still crept through its borders, their rifles a constant threat. Emily imagined Star leading her pups through this wilderness. Mist's shy steps, Stone's sturdy gait, Dawn's radiant energy, and Ghost's ghostly form, darting among the trees. The preserve's name, evoking silver light, felt like a promise, a place where the wolves could thrive beyond Elk Creek's reach. Each whisper of the white wolf fueled her hope, a thread connecting her to the family she'd nurtured in secret, now running free under the same moon that lit her sleepless nights. As summer deepened, Emily found solace in a nightly ritual. When the moon rose, casting a silver glow over Elk Creek, she slipped from the cabin, her flashlight tucked into her coat pocket. She walked a mile to a meadow nestled near the forest, a place where the world felt closer to the wild. The meadow was a sea of tall grass, swaying in the breeze with a fallen oak as its centerpiece, its gnarled roots as throne where Emily perched. Moonlight spilled across the clearing, painting long shadows that danced with the wind, creating an air of mystery, as if the meadow belonged to another realm. She sat, listening to the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, her heart straining for the howl of a wolf ghost's voice, perhaps, or stars. These visits were more than hope. They were a communion, a way to feel the wolves' presence, despite the miles and months that separated them. Each night she carried her journal, its pages worn from constant touch, ready to capture any sign of her lost companions. One evening, as fireflies blinked in the dusk, Emily shared the rumors with John over supper. The cabin's kitchen glowed with lamplight, the scent of stew mingling with the crackle of the hearth. John listened, his eyes softening as he set down his spoon. "You know my dad. Your Grandpa Bill used to tell me about the mother wolf," he said, his voice low, carrying the weight of memory and Lakota stories. "She's a sacred she-wolf, wise as the stars, guiding those who honor the wild. She leads her pack through the deepest forests, protecting the ones who save her kind. I look at Star, and I wonder if she's got that spirit." He smiled, a rare warmth breaking through his weathered face, and Emily leaned closer, hanging on his words. Bill's tales had always stirred her, painting wolves as more than beasts, and John's suggestion felt like truth. Star's golden eyes, her trust in the shed, her quiet strength, they were the marks of something greater, a guardian from the stories that had shaped her childhood. Emily's belief in the mother wolf grew, transforming her meadow visits into a pilgrimage. She saw Star as the embodiment of that sacred spirit, her survival a testament to the legends Bill had shared. Ghost, with his white fur and clever gaze, was her heir, a new leader carrying Star's wisdom into the wild. The thought made every step to the meadow sacred, a quest to reconnect with the wolves who'd changed her life. She filled her journal with these convictions, writing of Star's grace and Ghost's potential, her words a bridge across the distance. "I know you're out there," she scribbled, sketching the forest under a crescent moon, wolves' shadows weaving through the trees. "You're the mother wolf, Star, and Ghost is your legacy." The act of writing anchored her, a way to hold on to the bond she'd forged in the shed, even as Elk Creek's whispers of disdain tried to pull her down. Her nights in the meadow were a balm against the town's rejection. The forest felt alive, its whispers of wind and creaking branches, a language she longed to understand. Sitting on the oak, Emily sensed her soul entwining with the Rockies, as if the trees and stars knew her heart. She traced the constellations, calling out to Star and Ghost in silent pleas, believing they'd sense her pleas. she murmured to the night, her voice swallowed by the breeze. Though she hadn't seen them since John's release, the meadow brought peace, a space where the town's cold stares couldn't reach. Her journal grew heavy with drawings, stars' regal form, ghost bounding through mist, each line a prayer for their safety. The hope of seeing them again, of proving the mother wolf's legend, kept her returning. Night after night, Emily's dreams of becoming a zoologist burned brighter in those moments. The wolves had shown her a world beyond Elk Creek's fear, a wildness worth protecting. She imagined studying packs in Yellowstone, advocating for their freedom, carrying Star's spirit into her work. The meadow, with its moonlight and mystery, was her classroom, teaching her resilience and faith, even without sight of the wolves. She felt their presence in the rustle of the forest, a connection that sustained her through the town's isolation. As she walked home under the stars, journal clutched tight, Emily held fast to her belief. One day the wolves would appear, their howls a confirmation of the legend she'd helped begin, a promise that her love for them had not been in vain. Years had woven their tapestry over Elk Creek, and Emily Parker, once the girl who defied a town to save a wolf, had grown into a woman of 30, her name now synonymous with the wild she loved. In 2025, she stood as a renowned zoologist, her studies of Montana's gray wolves gracing scientific journals and earning her a quiet fame. Her chestnut hair, still tied in a practical ponytail, framed a face sharpened by experience, her eyes carrying the same fierce curiosity that had guided her at 50. Based in Missoula, she returned often to the familiar log cabin in Elk Creek, where the scent of pine and the creak of floorboards tethered her to her roots. Those visits were more than nostalgia. They were a pilgrimage to the place where her journey began, where a she-wolf named Star had changed her life. The memory of that winter, of Star's golden eyes and the pups she'd named Mist, Stone, Dawn, and Ghost, fueled her work, transforming childhood passion into a mission to protect the creatures Elk Creek once feared. Emily's path to this point had been one of relentless pursuit. She'd graduated from the University of Montana with a degree in wildlife biology, her thesis on gray wolf behavior earning accolades for its insight. Her years at Yellowstone National Park, tracking packs through rugged terrain and battling poachers alongside conservationists, had honed her skills in resolve. Each howl she heard in those vast wilds echoed the shed where Star had trusted her, where Ghost's white fur had gleamed under lamplight. Those moments, etched in her heart, drove her to advocate for wolf preservation, to fight for their right to roam free. The lessons of her youth, compassion, courage, defiance, into a voice for the voice. Now Emily led a team of young scientists into the moonlit preserve, a sprawling sanctuary of pine forests and misty valleys, where wolves thrived beyond Elk Creek's reach. The expedition, launched in the summer of 2025, aimed to study a peculiar pack rumored to shun livestock and guard the region. A behavior that baffled ranchers and intrigued scholars, Emily's reputation as a wolf expert made her the natural choice to head the project, her name drawing eager researchers to the cause. Among them was Sarah Collins, a vibrant 25-year-old graduate student, with blonde hair and a contagious enthusiasm. Sarah, who'd read Emily's papers with awe, saw her as a mentor, her questions about the pack's odd habits sparking lively debates around their campfire. The team, equipped with cameras and tracking gear, set up camp near a familiar meadow, the same one where Emily had waited for Star under countless moons, its fallen oak a silent witness to her hope. In the quiet of her tent, Emily opened her old journal, its pages yellowed but alive with memories. She traced the sketches of Star, her silver fur glowing in ink, and Ghost, his white coat a beacon in her drawings. The words she'd written at 15, leans of wolves, fears of loss, brought tears to her eyes, the ache of their absence as sharp as ever. "You're still out there, aren't you?" The journal was her bridge to that winter, to the mother wolf of Lakota tales her grandfather Bill had shared, a spirit she believed Star embodied. Emily hoped, against the odds of 15 years, to find traces of that pack mist's shy grace. Stone's sturdy frame, Dawn's radiant energy, or Ghost's ghostly presence. Perhaps Ghost still led, or Star's descendants carried her legacy. That hope drove her to the meadow, where she felt the wolf's spirit in every rustle of grass. Elk Creek had changed since her youth. The town, once quick to brand the Parkers as outcasts, had softened under the influence of conservation programs Emily had helped champion. Town hall meetings now featured talks on wolves as vital to the ecosystem, and many residents saw them as part of the land's heartbeat. Yet some ranchers clung to old fears, grumbling about lost cattle, their distrust a faint echo of the wolf house days. Emily, now a respected figure, walked Elk Creek streets with quiet pride. The whispers of the wolf girl lingered, a badge of her past. Her return to the moonlit preserve was more than sign. It was a quest to uncover the legacy of Star, to see if the wolves she'd saved still guarded Elk Creek, fulfilling the silent promise she'd sensed in their absence all those years ago. The July moon hung full and radiant over the moonlit preserve, bathing the meadow in a silver glow that turned the tall grass into a shimmering sea. Emily Parker, now 30 and leading a team of scientists, stood on the familiar ground where she'd once waited as a girl for Star and her pup. The fallen oak, its roots gnarled against the earth, anchored the scene, a touchstone from her past. Her team bustled behind her, setting up cameras and tracking gear, their voices a low hum of anticipation. Sarah Collins, the eager graduate student with a cascade of blonde hair, adjusted a lens, her excitement palpable. But Emily felt a pull beyond science, a tingling certainty that something extraordinary was near. She stepped forward, alone, her boots sinking into the soft earth, her journal clutched tight. The air was thick with the scent of pine and dew, and the night pulsed with a quiet magic, as if the meadow held its breath, waiting for a miracle to unfold. From the forest's edge, where shadows danced in the mist, a pack of wolves emerged, their forms ghostly under the moonlight. At their head stood a massive white wolf, his fur gleaming like fresh snow, his golden eyes sharp and knowing. Emily's breath caught. Ghost. He was no longer the tiny pup who'd chased twine balls in the shed, but a towering leader nearly 3 feet at the shoulder, his presence commanding the night. She recognized him instantly, the familiar glint in his gaze unchanged, despite the year. The pack, 10 strong, fanned out in a silent circle, their gray and black coats blending with the darkness, some bearing faint silver streaks that stirred memories of mist, stone, or dawn. They stood motionless, their eyes fixed on the humans, yet there was no growl, no bared teeth, only a stillness that felt like a sacred rite, charged with an unspoken understanding. Ghost's gaze locked onto Emily's, and time seemed to dissolve. Those golden eyes, unyielding yet gentle, pierced through the 15 years that separated them, reaching back to the shed where she'd whispered dreams to his mother's Star. Emily stood frozen, her journal a lifeline in her trembling hands, as a profound connection surged between them, transcending the boundaries of science. It was as if Ghost saw her, not the zoologist, but the girl who'd saved his family, who'd loved them against all odds. A silent message pulsed through her. We remember. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the meadow as she felt Star's spirit in Ghost. A thank you from the past, a confirmation of the mother wolf's legend her grandfather Bill had shared. This was no ordinary wolf. He was the heir to Star's legacy, carrying the promise of the Lakota tales that had shared. Behind her, Sarah and the team whispered in awe, their notebooks scribbling furiously, cameras whirring to capture the scene. They're not attacking, Sarah breathed, her voice a mix of disbelief and wonder. Emily, is this the pack from the rumors? Her eyes sparkled, sensing the rarity of the moment. The scientists, accustomed to wolves fleeing or snarling, marveled at the pack's calm, their organized stillness a puzzle that promised groundbreaking data. Emily nodded, her voice steady despite the storm within. Looks like it, she said, deflecting Sarah's curiosity. She kept her secret close, recording only clinical notes. Pack displays non-aggressive behavior, possibly due to human familiarity. To reveal Star, Ghost, and the shed would invite hunters, reporters, chaos threats to the wolves' freedoms she'd fought to preserve. She guided the team to focus on numbers, territories, deflecting their questions with practiced ease, her heart guarding the truth like a sacred vow. The encounter was more than data. It was a fulfillment of Emily's childhood dream. Standing in the meadow, she believed Ghost and his pack were Star's descendants, upholding the mother wolf's promise to protect Elk Creek's land. The absence of livestock attacks noted since the wolves' release was no coincidence. It was Star's gratitude, Ghost's loyalty. A pact forged in the shed all those years ago, Bill's stories of the mother wolf, a guardian of the respectful, echoed in her mind, and she felt their truth in Ghost's unwavering gaze. Yet joy mingled with fear. The preserve faced poachers and logging threats, shadows that could snuff out this pack. As Ghost led his wolves back into the forest, their forms fading into the mist, Emily's resolve hardened. She'd protect them, even if it meant sacrificing scientific glory, her heart swelling with the weight of a vow kept and a legacy reborn. Back at camp, the team buzzed with the night's findings. They pored over footage, tracing paw prints and analyzing the pack's behavior. 12 wolves, highly organized, avoiding livestock while patrolling near Elk Creek. Most striking was their restraint. No attacks even when humans stood mere yards away. Emily's notes confirmed it. Pack prevents rival wolves from entering territory, possibly protecting local resources. The data was revolutionary, suggesting a pack that guarded rather than raided, a behavior unseen in typical wolf studies. Sarah, her face alight, scribbled furiously. "This could change everything," she said, her voice eager. "We need to present this at the conference, Emily. It'll secure funding for Moonlit, shift how people see wolves." She leaned closer, sensing more to the story. "Is there something special about this pack? Something you're not saying?" Her question hung in the air, innocent but probing. Her camera still holding the meadow's images. Emily hesitated, the weight of her secret pressing down. To tell of Star, Ghost, and the shed would unravel everything. Hunters would swarm, journalists would descend, and the wolves' sanctuary would crumble. She'd seen it before, a famous wolf pack in Yellowstone hound to death, after fame spread. Instead, she smiled, deflecting. "I've seen what happens when wolves get too much attention," she said, spinning a half-truth. "A pack I studied once got hunted down after a big story broke. Their freedom matters more than our papers." Her voice was firm, her eyes meeting Sarah's. "Let's focus on long-term conservation, not headlines." Sarah nodded, a flicker of disappointment fading into respect. "You're right," she said. "I'll keep it to the data." Emily exhaled, grateful for Sarah's trust. But the choice left her isolated. The truth locked within her like a hidden star. Alone by her tent, Emily gazed at the moon, its light a mirror to the meadow's glow. She felt satisfied, knowing she'd shielded Ghost and his pack, honoring the promise she'd made to Star as a girl. Yet a quiet loneliness settled in. She could share this joy with no one, not even Sarah, who stood so close to her work. The journal open on her lap became her confidant. She wrote of Ghost's eyes, the pack's silent circle, and her unwavering belief in the mother wolf. "Star lives on," she scrawled, sketching Ghost on the meadow, his white fur a beacon. "Through you, through the forest." The act steadied her, reinforcing her resolve to protect the wolves. A mission born in a shed and now carried into the wild. The moonlit preserve, though, was no safe haven. Poachers slipped through its borders, and logging companies eyed its timber, their plans threatening the forest's hearth. The Blackfeet and conservationists fought back, but funds were scarce, and Emily knew Ghost's pack could vanish if the trees fell. The meadow's memory, Ghost's gaze, fueled her determination. She'd rally allies, use her data to bolster protections, and keep the preserve intact, not just for science, but for Star, for the mother wolf, whose legacy she'd sworn to uphold. The moon watched, a silent witness, as Emily closed her journal, ready to fight for the wolves who'd shaped her soul. Autumn painted the Rockies in hues of amber and crimson, and Emily Parker, now settled back in Missoula after her summer expedition to the moonlit preserve, found herself reflecting on the wolves that had shaped her life. The memory of Ghost, his white fur glowing under the July moon, lingered like a beacon, a testament to the legacy of Star and the mother wolf. But a few months later, a package arrived that would tether her even more deeply to that past. Delivered by a courier from Elk Creek's hospital. It contained a letter, a photograph, and a note sent by George Miller, the old neighbor whose moonshine-fueled gossip had once nearly undone her family. George, frail and nearing the end, had passed away shortly after sending it, his son discovering the items among his belongings. The photograph, wrapped in yellowed craft paper, was a relic from another time, its edges curling with age. Emily's hands trembled as she unwrapped it, her breath catching at the image it revealed. The photo captured a spring morning 15 years ago, when Emily was a girl of 15, standing beside her father John in front of their log cabin in Elk Creek. The light was soft, the air crisp, but what seized her heart was the faint figure under the porch, a share of silver-gray fur barely discernible in the dimness. Star, the she-wolf's form caught by chance in the frame, stood as if guarding the cabin, her presence a secret form by chance in time. Emily's fingers traced the image, memories flooding back, the shed's creaking boards, Star's golden eyes, the warmth of ghost, mist, stone and dawn curled against their mother. The photo was a portal to that winter, when her courage had defied a town's fear, and the sight of Star immortalized brought a lump to her throat. The note scrawled in George's shaky hand was brief, but piercing. John always knew, and so did I. Keep the mother wolf secret, little girl. Emily's eyes blurred with tears as she read, the words unraveling years of misunderstanding. George, the neighbor who'd sparked the town's suspicion with his tavern tales of wolf howls, had known about Star all along. His rumors had nearly brought Robert Hayes's mob to their door. Yet he'd chosen silence, honoring the Parkers' compassion in his own gruff way. The mention of the mother wolf, a nod to the Lakota legend her grandfather Bill had shared, struck her deeply. George, in his final days, had seen the truth, not just of the wolves, but of the bond that had defined Emily's life. She clutched the photo, a wave of gratitude mingling with regret. She'd never spoken openly with George, never thanked him for his quiet alliance. And now he was gone, leaving this gift as his parting word. The photograph was more than a memory. It was proof of the legend she'd helped forge. It bound Emily, John, and Star in a moment that transcended time, a tangible link to the mother wolf, whose spirit had guided them. George's recognition, his call to keep the secret, affirmed that their story was real, not just a girl's dream in a shed. It carried the weight of Star's trust, the pup's survival, and the town's slow shift from fear to acceptance. Emily felt a renewed responsibility, not just to the wolves, but to the legacy they'd create. She placed the photo in the family album, beside her journal sketches of Star and Ghost, its presence a vow to honor that winter's courage. Her resolve to protect the moonlit preserve deepened, a mission to safeguard Ghost's pack in the forest that cradled them. For John, for George, for the she-wolf who'd changed everything, Elk Creek itself had softened with time. The confrontation that had branded the Parkers as the Wolf House faded into memory, the younger generation barely recalling the mob led by Hay. Conservation efforts, spurred by Emily's work, had shifted the town's heart. Wolves were now seen as part of the land's pulse, discussed in town hall meetings with cautious respect. Yet the tale of the Wolf House lingered as a local legend, told with a mix of curiosity and skepticism, painting the Parkers as eccentric but enduring. Emily, now a celebrated scientist, walked the town's streets with quiet pride. Her nickname, the Wolf Girl, no longer a barb, but a badge. The photo, tucked away in her album, wove her past into Elk Creek's story, a silent testament to a girl's love and a wolf's loyalty, a legacy that whispered of the mother wolf's long and a wolf's loyalty, a legacy that a year after the moonlit encounter with Ghost, the summer of 2026, brought Sarah Collins to the weathered log cabin of the Parkers in Elk Creek. At 26, Sarah was a rising star in ecology, her blonde hair tied high and her smile brimming with the same fervor that had drawn her to Emily's work. As a graduate student at the University of Montana, she devoured Emily's reports on the moonlit preserves, enigmatic wolf pack, sensing a story beneath the data. Now, standing on the cabin's porch, she knocked with a mix of nerves and excitement, her laptop and notes tucked under her arm. Emily, 31 and seasoned by her years as a zoologist, opened the door, her chestnut ponytail swaying as she welcomed Sarah inside. The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee and burning cedar, the crackle of the hearth stirring memories of Emily's childhood. The winter she'd saved Star the shed where Ghost and his siblings had yipped under her care. "I read your report on the moonlit wolves," Sarah said, her eyes alight. "Their behavior's unlike anything I've studied. There's more to it, isn't there?" Emily smiled, sensing a kindred spirit, and gestured to a chair ready to share a truth she'd guarded for over a decade. Over steaming mugs, Emily opened her heart, revealing the stories she'd kept secret since her youth. For the first time, she spoke to an outsider about Star, the massive she-wolf she'd nursed back to life in the shed, her silver-gray fur a beacon in the dark. She described the pups. Her voice trembled as she recounted the town's confrontation, led by Robert Hayes, and John's desperate act to free the wolves into the moonlit preserve. She spoke of the meadow, where Ghost, now a majestic white wolf, had met her gaze under the moon, a moment that confirmed the Lakota legend of the mother wolf her grandfather Bill had taught her. Emily pulled out her journal, its pages worn and sacred, showing Sarah sketches of Star's golden eyes and Ghost's playful leaps. "They're the mother wolf's kin," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Star and Ghost. They've kept Elk Creek safe, honoring the trust we gave them." Sarah listened, her eyes wide, the weight of the tale sinking in. She traced the drawings, her fingers lingering on Ghost's form, as if touching the legend itself. That night, Emily led Sarah to the meadow, the same clearing where she'd waited as a girl, its fallen oak a silent sentinel under the stars. The moon hung low, casting a silver veil over the grass, and the air thrummed with the pulse of the wind. They sat in silence, the forest's whispers their only company, until a rustle broke the stillness. From the trees emerged a pack of wolves, their eyes glinting in the dark, led by a new figure, a sleek silver-coated wolf, her fur shimmering like the moon itself. Emily's breath caught. This was not Ghost, but another, a successor. She named her moon on the spot, struck by the wolf's radiant grace, her golden eyes deep with wisdom, a faint white streak on her forehead. Echoing Star's own mark, Moon stood mere yards away, her gaze locking onto Sarah, who threw down her glance. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "She's looking at me." The connection was palpable, a silent exchange that mirrored Emily's moment with Ghost. A recognition, a passing of trust. Sarah's eyes glistened, her hand clutching Emily's as she murmured, "I understand," as if Moon had chosen her for a purpose, a mantle to carry forward. Emily grasped Sarah's hand, her voice steady with conviction. "You're the one to carry this on," she said, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "The mother wolf's secret. Star, Ghost, Moon, it's yours now." She spoke of George Miller's photograph, the old man's note urging her to protect the legend, a reminder that their story was a fragile gift. "Keep it hidden," she urged, "or hunters will come, and Moon's pack will pay the price." She handed Sarah a copy of her journal, its pages a chronicle of love and sacrifice, a symbol of the mission now entrusted to her. Fight for the moonlit, for the wolves, against poachers, against the saws. That's how we honor them. Sarah nodded, tears tracing her cheeks, overwhelmed by the honor. "I promise," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll keep their secret, Emily. I'll protect them like you did." She hugged Emily tightly, gratitude and resolve binding them. As they left the meadow, Moon's pack melted into the forest, her silver form the last to fade, the moonlight blessing their path back to the cabin, a silent vow sealed under the stars. In the year 2040, the winds of change swept through Elk Creek, carrying the echoes of a story that had begun decades earlier. Sarah Collins, now 41, stood at the threshold of the Parker cabin, its weathered logs and sagging fence, a testament to time's passing. Emily Parker, the woman who'd ignited Sarah's passion for wild, had passed away at 45, felled by illness, leaving a void in the fight for the wild. Driven by the promise she'd made under the moonlight, Sarah left her teaching post in Missoula and bought the cabin, moving to the edge of Elk Creek to live closer to the moonlit preserve. It was more than a home. It was a shrine to Emily's legacy, a place where the spirit of Star, Ghost, and the mother wolf lingered. Sarah brought with her Emily's books, sketches, and the faded photograph from George Miller, each item a relic of a courage that had reshaped a town. The cabin became her anchor, its walls whispering memories of a girl who'd defied fear to save a wolf, inspiring Sarah to carry that torch forward. The cabin stood much as it had in Emily's youth, its silvered wood and snow-dusted stable evoking the winter of Star's rescue. The shed, once a secret haven, now served as Sarah's office, its shelves lined with Emily's journals, their pages filled with drawings of Star's silver fur and Ghost's white coat. The photograph from George, showing Emily and John with Star's shadow under the porch, hung above the kitchen table, a silent guardian of their home. Sarah worked late into the night planning conservation strategies, the shed's dim bulb casting light on maps and reports. It was here, surrounded by Emily's relics, that she felt closest to her mentor, as if the mother wolf's spirit watched over her efforts, urging her to protect the preserve, where Moon's pack still roamed. Sarah threw herself into the battle for Moonlit, leading efforts to shield its forests from poachers and loggers. She patrolled with rangers, her boots crunching through pine needles, setting up cameras to catch illegal hunters in the act. With the Blackfeet, she fought logging proposals, drafting reports that leveraged her ecological expertise to secure international funding. Her work was tireless, driven by the memory of Moon's golden eyes and Emily's trust. In Elk Creek, Sarah became a voice for change, hosting talks at the town hall, where she explained the wolf's role in balancing nature. She invited children to draw wolves, their crayons sketching silver and white coats, and shared the tale of the mother wolf, turning fear into reverence. Farmers, once wary, began to see wolves as allies, their support a testament to the shift Emily had sparked years before, a legacy Sarah now nurtured with every speech. The town dubbed her the Wolf Woman, a title spoken not with the mockery once aimed at the wolf house, but with deep respect. Sarah's efforts, fencing pastures, patrolling borders, kept Moon's pack from livestock, earning her the community's trust. At the tavern, stories of her work wove into local lore, casting her as a guardian of both wolves and Elk Creek. The town's view of wolves transformed, where Robert Hayes had once stoked fear. Residents now spoke of the silver wolf moon as a forest spirit, a symbol of harmony with the wild. This shift completed Emily's dream, with Sarah as its steward, turning a tale of defiance into a source of communal pride. Moon's pack thrived in Moonlit, their numbers swelling to 15, their hunts sparing Elk Creek's herds in a silent pact that echoed Star's promise. Sarah watched them through camera feeds, marveling at Moon's intelligence, her silver form leading with the same grace as Star and Ghost. Some younger wolves bore white streaks, hinting at Ghost's lineage, a living thread of the past. On moonlit nights, Sarah stood outside the cabin, listening to their howls rise from the forest, a chorus that stirred her soul. Star, Ghost, you're still here, she whispered, feeling their presence in Moon's voice, the mother wolf spirit binding them across time. The howls were a reminder of Emily's words, of a connection that transcended years, a legacy etched in the wild. Sarah preserved Emily's relics, journals, sketches, George's photo, sharing them with young researchers who visited Moonlit. She told the mother wolf's story, inspiring them to protect nature as Emily had inspired her. The artifacts were more than keepsakes. They were symbols of a girl's compassion, a spark that had ignited a movement. Sarah saw her mission as more than conservation. It was a vow to honor Emily's dream, to ensure the harmony between humans and nature. And Moonlit was no mere forest. It was the heart of the mother wolf's promise, a sanctuary she'd fight to keep alive so future generations could hear the wolf's song, just as she and Emily had under the endless Montana stars. By 2050, the winds of Elk Creek carried a story that had grown into legend, whispered in the glow of hearths and echoed in the town hall's weathered rafter. It was the tale of Emily Parker, the girl who at 15 saved a dying she-wolf named Star, igniting a chain of events that would bind her town to the wild forever. Around kitchen tables and campfires, folks spoke of Emily's courage, how she'd defied Elk Creek's fear to nurture Star and her pups, Mist, Stone, Dawn, and Ghost, in a shed under the noses of a suspicious mob. The story had spread beyond the town's borders, reaching neighboring hamlets in Montana, where it became a symbol of compassion and harmony with nature. No longer just the wolf house, bosom of decades past. It was a saga of a girl whose heart had changed a community, her name now synonymous with the legend of the mother wolf, a Lakota spirit her grandfather Bill had first shared. The tale was told with reverence, each retelling weaving Emily, Star and their bond into the fabric of the Rockies. The legend painted Star as the mother wolf herself, a sacred she-wolf whose silver-gray fur and golden eyes held the wisdom of the wild. She and her descendants Ghost, the white wolf who led with cunning, and Moon, the silver leader who followed, were said to guard Elk Creek's lands, sparing its livestock while guiding their pack through the Moonlit Preserve's deep forest. Moon, with her shimmering coat and knowing gaze, was the latest incarnation, her leadership a testament to the pack's enduring vow. The wolves, the story went, honored Emily's kindness, protecting the town as a silent thank you, their howls a Lakota blessing woven into the night. Each time Moon's voice rose, the legend came alive, a reminder of a promise kept across generations, a thread of loyalty that bound the past to the present. Under the full moon's glow, those howls became Elk Creek's heart. From the preserve to the meadow where Emily had once waited, Moon led her pack in a trilling chorus, their voices weaving through the tall grass and up to the stars. The scene was breathtaking. Moonlight spilled over the clearing, illuminating Moon atop a hill, her silver fur a beacon, her pack arrayed behind her like sentinels. Their song, deep and resonant, spoke of loyalty, of a bond forged in a shed and carried through time. In Elk Creek, the sound was as familiar as the church bell, drawing folks to pause, farmers setting down pitchforks, children peering from windows to listen. Some swore the howls brought blessings, shielding the town from harm, their cadence a spiritual echo of the mother wolf's grave. The music of the wild had become a part of the town's soul, tying it to the forest in a way no one could have foreseen. Elk Creek had transformed since the days of Robert Haza's wolf hunts. Fear had given way to reverence, the town embracing wolves as emblems of unity with nature. Signs at the preserve's edge read Land of the Mother Wolf, drawing eco-tourists who marveled at the balance Sarah Collins had fostered. Local laws, shaped by her advocacy, protected the wolves, ensuring their sanctuary and moonlit remained intact. Children were the truest keepers of the tale, their school walls adorned with crayon drawings of Ghost's white fur and Moon's silver gleam. They sang folk songs about the mother wolf, verses taught by Sarah, passing the story from one generation to the next. The legend was no longer a whisper of scandal, but a vibrant heritage, a testament to a shift that had begun with Emily's defiance and bloomed under Sarah's care. The legend's heart was its lesson. Emily's compassion, a single act of saving Star, had rippled through time, reshaping perceptions and forging a bond between humans and the wild. It echoed Bill's Lakota wisdom that kindness to nature could yield eternal rewards, a truth Sarah shared in her lectures to young conservationists. She carried Emily's spirit, ensuring the story inspired others to protect the earth. Now gray-hailed, Sarah still visited the meadow monthly, sitting on the fallen oak to hear Moon's howl. Clutching Emily's journal, she felt their presence, Emily's resolve, Star's strength, woven into the forest's breath. "You're here, aren't you?" she whispered, the wind carrying her words to the star. One radiant night, Moon stood atop a hill in moonlit, her silver fur aglow, leading her pack into the forest's depths. The moonlight carved their path, a promise that the mother wolf would always watch over Elk Creek. As their howls faded into the mist, they sang of a timeless bond, linking past to future. The legend of Emily Starr and the girl's love could change the world, forging a harmony that Sarah and countless others would carry forward, forever etched in the wild heart of Montana. So you're always updated on our latest content. Your support truly means the world to us. Ghost moved like smoke through the trees, but always returned to Mira, like the forest itself was watching over her, because of him. Mira looked into Ghost's eyes, and for a moment, she wasn't a child and he wasn't a beast. They were two souls, scarred and surviving, understanding each other without words. Mira looked into Ghost's eyes, and for a moment, she wasn't a child and he wasn't a beast. They were two souls, scarred and surviving, understanding each other without words.